Previously on Kitchen Princess Academy. The whole squad almost murders each other like 3 times over a fucking watch, and Akane finally begins to respect Najika after publicly getting her ass beat, and now they're best friends. Najika enters a big important baking competition to make Sora love her because she's insane, but then she finds out that this whole time Sora's had ulterior motives and has been manipulating her ever since she got to the academy. Not only that, but the director tells her that if she doesn't win the competition, she'll be expelled. On the day of the final round, Sora tries to bring Najika some overpriced vanilla beans and gets obliterated by a truck, and that's what you missed on Kitchen Princess Academy! So the whole gang rushes to the hospital where Sora has been taken, and Daichi decides that now is an appropriate time to give Najika the vanilla beans that Sora had been bringing her. Side note, at this point the beans must have been covered in gravel and rain and blood, because the last we saw of them, they were on the ground next to Sora's body. Side note, does this mean that Daichi went to the spot of the accident and crossed the crime scene barrier just to pick up these fucking beans? Where are everyone's priorities? Anyway, the whole goon squad bursts into the fucking operating room to check on Sora, and my boy looks rough. And the squad decides to step out and give Najika some privacy with Sora, not Daichi, his only brother. And once they're alone, Sora takes off his own oxygen mask because he has something really important to tell Najika. Go on to the final round and become the world's best pastry chef, because your dream is my dream. Also, I have to apologize. I'm not your flan prince. And then his heart like just fucking stops. So all these doctors rush in. Fuck. So all these doctors rush in and are trying to resuscitate him, and he's somehow still able to speak, even though he just died. And Najika's like, then why? Why did you say that? Because I wanted to be your prince. My dude cannot fucking stop being manipulative. Literally on his deathbed, he's still taking advantage of Najika's feelings. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm glad he's dead. I am. I'm glad he's dead. I'm not gonna apologize for that. After watching Sora flatline, Najika goes into this kind of monotone, robotic trance. She can't cry and her eyes go dull. I need to go. The final round of the competition. I need to go for Senpai. And despite knowing that this is a terrible idea because Najika is clearly having some kind of mental breakdown, the gang also knows that they won't be able to stop her. And so they're like, all right, let's get you to the final round. But before they go in, Daichi's like, Najika, you need to eat something. Here, I bought you some bruschetta. This doesn't taste like anything. Huh? And Daichi takes a bite and he's still able to taste it. And so they're like, what's going on? It turns out that going into shock has caused Najika to lose her absolute sense of taste. In fact, she can't taste or smell anything at all. They managed to get Najika into the competition just before they were about to disqualify her for being late. The cooking time begins, but Najika's still dissociating. She's frozen, unable to move. Until Daichi, who's clearly having a little moment of his own, screams to her that it doesn't matter if she can't taste, she's practiced so much that her body will remember how to make the dish. And sure enough, from pure muscle memory, she begins cooking, all the while imagining that she's talking to Sora, going over their memories together, talking about the details of the recipe and how much he'll like it, how she's making it for him and she can't wait for him to taste it. Until finally... Senpai, I made it! The best cake ever! Try it, Senpai! Oh, that's right. Senpai isn't here anymore. He can't eat what I make. Ever. Again. Najika! Najika then wakes up in the hospital after apparently being unconscious for a whole day. The first thing she asks is, what were the results of the final round? We cut to Sora's memorial service at the academy. Because he was so popular and well-loved, the entire student body is just devastated. Then, Najika walks in. That's Kazami-san. She has a lot of nerve showing up. He died delivering ingredients to her for the competition. And she didn't even win, right? Yep. Even after all that struggle and heartbreak, Najika did not win the competition. And to make matters worse, now everyone is blaming her for Sora's death. Even though she literally didn't even ask him to bring those vanilla beans, he did that on his own free will. But like, fuck it, whatever. This is definitely the lowest point of the whole series. Is what I would say if the rest of this book didn't exist. And right on cue, oh god, this clown again. The director decides that his son's fucking funeral is the appropriate place to confront Najika, who I'd like to remind everyone is a child. He's like, you dumb fucking bitch. As if killing my son wasn't bad enough. You also lost the baking competition. You knew the rules. If you didn't win, you lose a scholarship. It is completely legal for me to do this. I hereby expel you from Psycha Academy. Actually, you know what? No. Expelling you isn't enough. I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm just imagining the writer's room at this point in the story. Like, okay, so she lost the important competition and her crush just died. I think the story's sad enough here. I don't think we need to go any further. No. More bullying. Najika runs away crying to the roof of the school, and is it just me, or the way it's framed looks like she's about to fucking jump? Luckily, before we can think about that too much, Daichi shows up, and they have a really tearful, emotional heart-to-heart, and he swears to her that no matter what it takes, he'll find a way to let her stay at the academy. Despite the tragedy, it's really refreshing to see Daichi dropping his tough guy jerk act and just allowing himself to feel his feelings. You might even call this character development. The next morning, Akane visits Najika and brings her some sushi rolls with curry in them. I thought if you ate something spicy, it'd stimulate your tongue and you'd get your sense of taste back. Was that a dumb idea? Najika realizes that Akane made these herself because they look like shit. I'll never forget this taste. I'll remember it forever. You can't fucking taste shit, can you? No, sorry, I was trying to be nice. This is another one of those small, sweet moments where we get to see development in Akane. She went out of her way and did something way outside of her comfort zone because she knows how much it'll mean to Najika, even if she can't taste it. She even mentions that she's brought up Najika's loss of taste to her doctor. This shows not only is she genuinely concerned for Najika, but she's also still getting help for her own eating disorder. You know, actual help. Akane convinces Najika to join her on a doctor's visit tomorrow. I know I go on and on about Akane, but I really love this part. It's one of these refreshing moments where we remember that these weirdos are fucking teenagers. They're just trying to survive, and a lot of times all they have is each other. Daichi will probably do something so you can stay at the academy, so don't worry. I'll see you tomorrow. Promise? Yeah. What did you say, Daichi? I said I want you to let Najika stay at the academy. No! But the Lavender House is suffering financially. She took Sora's life! But that's... Daichi, how much longer do you plan on keeping this up? Do you know what the family is saying? Sora gave up everything for the academy. Never complained, not once. Then I'll replace Sora. Huh? I'll give up everything I have and live the way you want me to. Are you serious? I am, because I've decided I'm going to protect Najika at all costs. Akane! Have you seen Najika? She can stay at the academy. Really? Of course there are conditions, but... Najika! The director gave his approval! You can stay here! That's right. Najika ran away. A fucking again. The remaining members of the Goon Squad get to talking, and Fujita gives some interesting information on where they might find her. Apparently, her dream has been to return to the house where her and her parents lived before the accident. And sure enough, that's where she went. Just seeing the house brings back a flood of memories. Memories of back when she was young and safe and her parents were alive and none of these problems existed. She's about to open the front gate when... What are you doing? Huh? This is our house. A new family has moved in. A new mother with a new little girl. And Najika is left outside alone. Truly alone. She wanders through this town that's so familiar yet so foreign to her. The only thing that fills her mind are her own failures, losses, the faces of those who hate her. Okay guys, I think the story's sad enough now. I don't think anything else bad needs to happen to Najika. Just then, Najika rolls her ankle and tumbles into a fucking hole. I'm not kidding, a literal pit of despair. Luckily, Daichi's already gotten to the town, because plane tickets are like toilet paper, I guess, and he's on the hunt looking for her. And not a moment too soon, because Najika is straight up going insane in that hole. She's having this whole out-of-body experience and talking to the spirits of her dead parents and Sora, her dead kinda boyfriend, and telling them in explicit detail about how badly she wants to kill herself. Hey, remember just a couple books ago when we were like rallying together to save the Fujita diner? I miss those days. Fucking finally Daichi finds her and they have another heart-to-heart and he lets her know that she can stay at the academy. On their way back through town, they pass by Najika's old house and the bitch that lives there comes out like, sorry about earlier, I didn't think to ask for an explanation. You bitch! Would you two like to come in for some water? Anyway, Najika takes a sip of water from the faucet that she used to drink from all those years ago. It does taste like life. She got her taste back! Everything's coming up Millhouse! Also, shout out to the graphic designers for putting Sora front and center on the back of the book that he fucking dies in. Najika also notices that the woman and her child were in the middle of baking something, and so of course she's like, oh, were you just baking something? Well, now we're baking something, bitch. And she makes the most delicious, I don't know, bread? Meanwhile, back at Saika Academy, since losing her scholarship, Najika can't be in the special gifted classes anymore, so now she's with the plebeians. The rumor everyone's whispering around is that she got kicked out of the gifted classes because she was a failure at them. Oh, that and she killed the director's son. At this point, you might be wondering where the story can go from here. I mean, Sora's gone and he was one of the main driving forces of the plot, so the story must get weaker from here, right? Buddy? This is where the story gets good. Akane finds out that since Najika doesn't have the scholarship, she can't stay in the dorms anymore. Then where are you living now? Oh, let me show you. Yep, she's living in the attic of the Fujita diner. I'm just imagining Fujita being like, fuck it, we're already breaking every other child labor law, might as well break some more. Oh, by the way, has Daichi come by lately? Daichi? No, I haven't seen him. Well, I'm not surprised. He left the dorms and returned home. He's become so serious. Mr. President, we can't adjust the budget for the school festival. Then I'll do it. That's right. This is the deal Daichi had to make with his dad. In order for Najika to stay at the academy, he has to fill all the roles that Sora left behind. My man, the director, really said, if I'm not taking advantage of at least one of my children at any given time, I will fucking die. Did you call me father? Looks like you're working hard. Yes, that was the deal. What's this? A transfer student who's going to be the spokesperson for the cooking program. Najika Kazami's replacement. I want you to look after them. Daichi finally visits the Fujita diner for the first time in a while. It's been a while since you've been here. Yeah, I've been busy learning the ropes as student body president. This food is really good. The two of them finally get a chance to catch up and reconnect, and then she has to go and serve another student. So you're not gonna tell her how you feel? She won't know if you don't tell her. Fujita, you're like 35. Why are you involved in middle school relationship drama? The truth is, Daichi can't bring himself to confess his feelings to Najika because he knows that she was in love with Sora. A few days later, while Najika's out getting groceries, welcome. I heard the dessert here is good. Can I have one? I see. It's not that amazing. Just then, Najika's returning with more ingredients, and she hears this mysterious ball-cap man critiquing her food. This is actually pretty bad. Huh? She uses cheap butter. Ugh, this kitchen's pathetic. You can feel a draft coming in. I'm sorry, I can't eat any more of this. Can you throw it away? Hey, I made that. Why don't you like it? And who are you? Oh, I know all about you, Najika-chan. Sora? End of book 6! Sora's back! What's going on? I hear you shout. Let me explain this to you. This blonde bitch in front of us is not a hallucination. He's not a spirit. He's not Sora reincarnated. He is the new transfer student, Seiya Mizuno, and he is here to fuck shit up. He's another very gifted culinary student who was brought to Saika to replace Najika as the spokesperson. But unlike Najika, he's a snobby, soulless nepotism brat who verbally assaults everyone within 100 meters of him. In short, he's my new favorite character. And he just happens to look identical to Sora. That's right. Kitchen Princess is pulling a Twin Peaks. I told you this is where shit gets good. So Najika is frozen in shock as she's face to face with who she believes is Sora. Seiya, being a total psychopath, grabs her and pushes her against the wall. Did I mention that Seiya just physically assaults bitches? Because he does that too. Daichi, of course, steps in and pulls him away, but then is also stunned at seeing what he thinks is his dead brother's face. Sora? No. No way. And Seiya's just like, who's Sora? Sounds poor. I'm Seiya, and I'm the baddest bitch in town. And Fujita's like, wait, Seiya Mizuno? Fujita explains that Seiya is the son of some billionaire who owns a bunch of luxury hotels, and he's been training to be a chef since he was a literal child. I'm honored you know so much about me, Fujita. I'm also disappointed to see you fell so far. All that training at Etoile for nothing. It's kind of perfect timing, right? Like, just when Akane stops being a bully, a new bully shows up, and he's a billion fucking times worse. Before he leaves, he invites Najika to a party that he's throwing for himself to welcome himself to the academy. Love the confidence. Have I mentioned I love this bitch? Now, if you remember, the director put Daichi in charge of keeping this new transfer kid happy, showing him around, basically being his servant. So can we just pause and talk about the level of psychological warfare the director is committing against his son right now? Like, Daichi is clearly crushed over Sora's death, because even though they had a rocky relationship, he still loved his brother. And he's obviously torn up about it because the two of them never got the chance to fix their relationship before Sora died. So the director manipulates Daichi into being his new son employee, filling Sora's role. And then he just happens to bring in a new student who looks identical to his dead fucking brother, and then forces Daichi to spend extended periods of time with this doppelganger. You cannot convince me that this is a coincidence. The director is an actual psychopath. So, on the day of the party, the goon squad assembles. Apparently, none of the students have seen the new kid, so when he shows up to the party, it's another whole thing of, what? Sora? Sora's alive? Go ahead. Introduce me, Mr. Student Body President. I'm convinced the director told him to say that, just to make Daichi suffer even more. Seiya sees Najika's there and he gives her a whole tour of his fancy kitchen. It seems like the whole point of this party is to flex on her and everyone else, I guess. So the food Seiya cooked is served and everyone, of course, is like, ooh, this is really good. Hi, okay, sorry to interrupt. I'm editing right now and I just noticed something that I want to point out to you. They're all sitting next to each other, like including Fujita. I like to imagine that Seiya had like a separate table set aside just for the Goon Squad, like a VIP booth, just so we could fuck with them even more. Also, Stelly's here again. Here's my best friend. Oh, hi, Angel. Hi. Hi. He asks Najika what she thinks, and she says, well, I don't think expensive ingredients are what makes food taste good. Which causes Seiya to launch into the first of many villain monologues. Oh, it's about heart, it's about love, ridiculous. Cooking is mathematics and science. The correct numbers will give you the correct answer. That's why only kids eat your snacks. You're just playing house. Just then he sees that someone is salting the food that he made. Hey, why are you putting salt on it? 'Cause I like salty things. So naturally, he slaps her plate off the fucking table. My seasoning is perfect. Don't change it without my consent. You have no right to eat my food. Get out. Just a little heads up, this upcoming arc is my favorite part of the entire series. This pushes Najika over the edge, fucking finally. And she stands up to him saying, well, at least my cooking is better than yours. Oh god. Oh no, I think we all know where this is going. Then let's have a baking competition. Fuck! Again? So here's the rules this time around. Najika and Seiya are both going to make a batch of Madeleines. And the judges will be a handful of students. They chose Madeleines because they're a very simple cookie, and any variations in the recipe or quality will be noticeable. If Najika wins, Seiya will have to admit that she's a better cook, and she gets all his fancy equipment. If Seiya wins, you'll have to do whatever I want. What the fuck? What the fuck does that even mean? Fine. Najika, stop! So just for the record, just for the books, this is the third time Najika has had to either bake or face major consequences. Like, I guess she'll be Seiya's slave if she loses? What the fuck is this, Kaiji? So it's the night before the competition, and Seiya is getting a massage because he's a rich asshole. His strategy is just to use the most expensive ingredients in the world because he's a little bitch. Meanwhile, at the Fujita diner, Najika's practicing baking Madeleines, but something's wrong. Oh, Najika, your Madeleines are burned. Oh yeah, I was trying to see how long I could bake them for. Oopsie. Fujita and Daichi watch as Najika makes a bunch of practice batches of cookies, but they're each coming out terrible or inconsistent. Like one batch is burnt, one batch is soggy, she's trying a bunch of new ingredients. This is unlike her. At this point, Daichi's like, hey, just a reminder, if you can't bake these fucking cookies right, you'll, I don't know, be Seiya's personal slave. So you might want to take this seriously. Don't worry, I have a plan. Okay, the day of the contest arrives. Seiya and Najika both have their pre-made Madeleines ready to go. They lay them down in front of all the judges, and they all taste Seiya's first. Of course, the judges are like, these are very good. I can taste the fucking French butter or whatever. I don't care. And now, the moment of truth. They're trying Najika's Madeleines. But here's where things get weird. Najika's cookies are all really inconsistent. One of the students says theirs is extra sweet, one of them says theirs is crispy and overcooked, one is more dense, one tastes refreshing, etc. What's going on? How come they're all giving different opinions? What a disappointment. She can't even get a consistent flavor. But I prefer Kazami-san's Madeleines. Huh? Me too, I prefer Kazami-san's. I choose Kazami-san's too. So at this point, Seiya's throwing a complete fit. Well, my dessert is too refined for your taste. This competition is null and void. We need someone who truly understands taste. Then, can I try? Who the fuck are you? She's a famous food critic. Oh, okay. Baking competition, round 2. Professional critic edition. She tries both of their Madeleines, and she also says Najika won. What the fuck? Seiya's about to blow a fucking gasket. But her Madeleines are either too sweet or too hard. She can't even get a consistent flavor. And the food critic says, that's why Najika's are better. The point of this competition was to make the most delicious cookie for each judge, and Najika accomplished that. Najika, is it possible you changed the flavors on purpose? Okay, this is it. This is my favorite part. Let's get it. Najika reveals that yes, she made each Madeleine different to cater to the taste of each student judge. Like for one of them, she added more sugar because she knows that judge likes sweet things. For one judge, she overcooked it because she knows they like crunchy stuff. One of them, she added lemon because she knows they like refreshing tastes. But how do you know what I like? We've never spoken before. Well, you visited the Fujita diner, right? It turns out all this time, Najika has been remembering the orders of each individual student who visits the Fujita diner so that she can remember their tastes and make them food that they'll especially like. Because the whole reason Najika loves cooking is because she loves making people happy with her food. And this is what Seiya doesn't understand. No matter how cheap her ingredients are, no matter how old her equipment is, Najika's cooking will always be better because she actually cares about the person she's baking for. And you can't buy that kind of magic. Help me. Okay, wait. I'm getting choked up talking about this. Cut the cameras. So yes, the final result is Najika wins the competition and Seiya's about to turn into the fucking Joker. Najika says she doesn't want Seiya's fancy equipment because that never mattered to her in the first place. But I have a favor to ask you. I want you to eat this. Why do I have to eat something you made? I see, you're acting awfully cheeky for someone who lost. Seiya just takes the cookie and storms out like a little bitch. So the Goon Squad regroups back at the Fujita diner and they ask Najika what the cookie that she gave Seiya tasted like. It was a taste of Hokkaido. The butter and the milk. It's something any local would recognize. I figured he'd like it because he grew up in Hokkaido. Once again, there's a bit more in this book, but I think we're at a good stopping place here. I just want to say thank you so much for watching and thank you so much for your patience. Subscribe if you want to, don't if you don't, and I'll see you next whenever I upload. Bye!